The Pittsburgh Steelers season is officially over, and a roller coaster of a ride that has had plenty of questions, including this one that has been brought up plenty of times, finally needs an answer. Is Mike Tomlin the coach of the future? What's going on, everybody? I'm Noah Strackbine. Thank you for jumping on to Steelers to Go, your daily to-go cup of Pittsburgh Steelers news and analysis. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers, their season officially comes to an end with a loss to the Buffalo Bills that the score says was a bit of a blowout. It was probably much closer than that, and at times, I think other questions got answered in this one. Mason Rudolph is a guy that I would consider bringing back because even though fans wanted to get rid of him, or at least Twitter fans, which is a totally different element, a much shorter leashed version of a fan, wanted to get rid of him probably in the first quarter after maybe his first incompletion. He turned it on and made some gutsy throws and looked very good. A quarterback that gave you an opportunity and a chance, and maybe he's just a guy and not the guy, but he looked good. And somewhere in the NFL, he's going to get an opportunity to do something. Their defense had answers and also had answers in negative ways, with their secondary looking as poor as they possibly could. And then obviously the weather and everything else that factored in. It was a wild weekend in Buffalo. It was a weekend that I'll never forget, and I'm thankful for. And I'm thankful to get snowed into the city of Buffalo for 2 days and have to see what that's like and get to come home and tell the story. Thankful for all of it. I'm more thankful to be back in Pittsburgh and to sleep in my own bed. And I wish it came with a victory, but it didn't. But the biggest news, the hottest topic of conversation last night, and that included a night that George Pickens called out the referees, and Najee Harris said that there needs to be some discipline changes, and that in-house they need to have different rules, and he has addressed these rules and made his opinions known to not just Mike Tomlin, but to everybody. A night where Mason Rudolph addressed his future with the team, and Cam Hayward said he doesn't know if he's going to keep playing football. The hottest topic of conversation, the biggest news, was Mike Tomlin being asked a question about his contract and his future with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then walking off before that question was finished. And that started all the debates, all the questions. Is it over? Did he just indicate that he is not coming back? Is he even thinking about it? Maybe it was just so dumb of a question in his head, and I'm not saying that it was, but in his head, that he was like, I'm not going to address this right now. We just lost a playoff game, because that would be very Mike Tomlin-ish. But then there's the fan side. The fan side of it's time to get rid of him. A lot of people, I tossed the question out on Twitter yesterday or on X or whatever you want to call it, and said, hey, where do you stand with Mike Tomlin right now? And I think 90% of the comments were, I really love the guy, but it might be time to move on. And then 10% of the comments were, there's no chance you get rid of Mike Tomlin. I'm sorry, but you just can't do it. I don't know where you stand. You should let me know. But in the meantime, let's talk about whether or not he is going, and whether or not Mike Tomlin did just coach his last game as the Pittsburgh Steelers head coach, and if he's going to go somewhere else, and if he wants to go somewhere else, and if the Pittsburgh Steelers should want him to go somewhere else. We are officially 7 years of playoff losses for Mike Tomlin consecutively. In those 7 years, I believe the last 5 games, he has been outscored somewhere in the ballpark of 66-0 in the first quarter of those games. That's pretty rough. He obviously hasn't won any of them, and the last 3 of them, if you include the Bills game as a blowout, have been very, very rough performances. Performances where you kind of knew right from the beginning there wasn't that big of an opportunity for this team to win and chances are they were going to lose. And in 2 of them before this, they were going to lose pretty bad, including a season where they started 11-0 with Ben Roethlisberger as their quarterback. No distractions, COVID, obviously, but still a season that was in their hands, and they got blown out by the Cleveland Browns. Kansas City was an embarrassment, and Buffalo didn't get much better. So is he the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers moving forward? Let's start by saying this. I am not somebody who is into, hey, it is one person's fault for all the issues within an organization. I believe Mike Tomlin is part of the problem. I will acknowledge that. I have acknowledged that, and I will continue to acknowledge that until it is fixed. But he's not the only problem. They don't have a quarterback. And Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and Jordan Love and everybody who played very well over the weekend shows you that there's a very, very significant difference between a guy and the guy. And the Pittsburgh Steelers might have a guy in Kenny Pickett. They might have a guy in Mason Rudolph for the time being, but they don't have the guy, and they haven't had the guy in 2 years. And I don't think they'll have the guy next year unless they go out and draft and or sign some pretty big name. They don't have the guy. They have a guy. A guy doesn't win you a Super Bowl. On top of that, they've lost 2 inside linebackers and finished the season with Mark Robinson playing a pretty significant role, and I've been a critic of Mark Robinson, and I think he played very well yesterday, but they finished the season with Eric Rowe as their primary safety and Minkah Fitzpatrick and Patrick Peterson trying to play safety and nobody wanting to tackle. Nobody in the world wanting to tackle. He's had distractions, or the team has had distractions with George Pickens constantly, and reports say that the team in the NFL have tried desperately to calm those actions and did so by fining him upwards of $200,000. They've had drop issues with pretty much everybody, fumble issues with pretty much everybody. Their rookie left tackle is playing right tackle, and their right tackle, who's worth $13-14 million, is on the bench. Their center can't snap the football, and they fired their offensive coordinator in the middle of the season. So there are a lot of reasons that the Pittsburgh Steelers season did not go very well. There are a lot of reasons that the Pittsburgh Steelers were not AFC North champs or able to compete, and there are a lot of reasons that they did not beat the Buffalo Bills. And I believe that you have to acknowledge all those, and if you are somebody that says, well, all of those is just because of Mike Tomlin, that's not true. It's just not. He can't control injuries. He can't control fumbles. He can't control players lashing out no matter how hard internally he tries to stop that lashing out. What he can't control is his part. And I don't think that he did his part well enough. I don't believe that he has done his part well enough. And when you look at the grand scheme of things, the Pittsburgh Steelers and where they stand, Mike Tomlin is a Mike McCarthy right now. Mike Tomlin is a guy that you trust is going to win enough games to get you to the dance, but he's not a guy that's going to win you the dance. He's not a guy that you have any faith in is going to be a Super Bowl winning coach. That's where you stand with Mike Tomlin, and it's the sad truth, because you look at Mike McCarthy and you kind of almost know from the start of the season, this guy isn't going to win you a Super Bowl. And you look at Mike Tomlin, and at the start of the season, you try very hard to convince yourself, hey, look at this. This could be a Super Bowl team. This could be this team. This guy could go on a run. This team could go on a run. And then once the dance starts and that first quarter hits and everything goes downhill, you quickly realize, no, he can't. That's not who he is. That's not who he's been. I don't know if a change of scenery changes that. I don't know if it's better for Mike Tomlin or better for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I have no idea. I will say this, that I don't believe Mike Tomlin just coached his last game. I think he will be back, and I think there are going to be a lot of people that say, oh, Mike Tomlin's a Hall of Fame coach. Why in the world would you get rid of this guy? Why would you even consider getting rid of this guy? I'm not saying you do. I'm saying that you acknowledge that he is part of the problem. And guys like Najee Harris saying after the game, look, we have discipline problems and we have in-house issues that I have brought up, and Mike Tomlin tells me to just be a running back. The players acknowledge these things. They know that there are issues. They know that their ceiling is much lower than they want it to be, and that is because of the guy running the show, Mike Tomlin. Maybe he lets too much go. Maybe he doesn't know how to handle players anymore. Maybe I have no idea. I don't know what in-house discipline issues are. And everybody's going to bring up George Pickens, and I'm sure that's part of it, but I have no idea if that's all of it or if that's just a small portion. What I do know is if Mike Tomlin doesn't start listening to everybody around him and those who have acknowledged, fans included, the issues with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he continues to do this in his lane and his lane only, his ceiling is a first-round playoff exit. And he's proven that. And that's as far as you're ever going to get with the Pittsburgh Steelers. If he starts to listen and says, okay, maybe we do need to change some things. Maybe I come back in 2024 and I am a new Tomlin and I have a new offensive coordinator and I go a different route and I go a different route at quarterback and I start listening to everybody who says, hey, look, at some of these guys on the offensive line aren't it. Some of these guys on defense aren't it. We need a real offensive coordinator, as fans have screamed for years. Discipline's got to be better. Whatever other in-house issues got to be better, got to be fixed. Maybe if Mike Tomlin comes back and does things in a different manner, in a changed way where he actually listens to those around him, which he clearly has not done, maybe things improve. And maybe that ceiling raises. But for right now, you know what you're going to get. Do I think he just coached his last game? No. Do I think there's a chance in 2024 that Mike Tomlin is a different coach and that he has a different approach and he just looks at it like, look, at my back's against the wall and this is ridiculous. And my legacy right now is that I am not a Super Bowl winning coach. I am a first round exit, can't win a playoff game coach. I've lost the fans. I've lost this. I've lost that. I'm starting to lose the locker room. If that's the case, if he actually listens, I think there's a possibility Mike Tomlin is new and improved in 2024. I think if he doesn't, next season is going to be just as rocky and as a roller coaster and as disappointing as this one at the end because of a lot of reasons. One of those reasons probably being the head coach.